So Evie, good to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you too.
And Evie, I read what you wrote in the chat. What would be a great outcome for this conversation for you?
As I said in the chat, I have real imposter syndrome, and although I've had some small successes with some clients already to date, I feel very stuck in how to take this forward. And in my heart, I know that I've got a lot to offer to potential clients, and I can make a difference. And I've seen that difference with the people that I work with. But my head is constantly telling me, you're not smart enough, you're not qualified enough. The whole conversation around imposter syndrome.
Got it. And you said something really interesting. I loved it, Evie. You said, I've got real imposter syndrome. And I was like, are you sure that it's real imposter syndrome?
Feels real.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm so glad you said that because I made a note of it. Feels real. Have you ever had the experience of feeling something and it felt really real, and then you discovered it wasn't real? Like a
Yes.
dream, for instance?
Yeah.
Or yeah, there's so many examples. So
So many examples.
right, right. So we can't use whether or not something feels real to determine whether it's real or not. And the reason I loved what you said is real imposter syndrome implies that there's kind of fake imposter syndrome. And some people have got fake imposter syndrome, but some people have got real imposter syndrome. And then I heard you saying that in your heart, you know you want to do it, you know you want to move forward, but then your head comes up with all this stuff. Well, and in a way, Evie, it kind of boils down to a simple decision. And it's not just going to be this, but it's mostly going to be this, which is who you're going to trust. Are you going to trust your frightened ego conditioning, which is your head, or are you going to trust your heart?
That's the hard one.
What is it?
Yeah, it is, because I've been doing a lot of work personally on that over the last few years. So I recognize that when the voice is telling me that I can't, that it's not necessarily true, but it's a hard one to overcome.
Well, now here's my question. If it's not true, why would you have to overcome it?
Because I think it's what you said, where it's an ingrained pattern or a historical pattern.
And therefore, what?
And therefore I have to find a way to trust myself to break that pattern.
Got it.
Oh, you're good.
What happened? Because here's what I noticed. Suddenly, it felt like you got really quiet on the inside, and I felt closer to you. Did you notice that, or was I just smoking my own supply?
It felt like there was a space being held.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's what I heard, Evie. I heard you say, I've got real imposter syndrome and I need to overcome it so I can move forward, right? And so here's my question. If you were to overcome it, like above and beyond that, what do you see? What's your heart calling to you to bring into being? What do you like if we had a spot of luck during this session and all of a sudden that imposter syndrome just went and was revealed to be the imposter that it was pretending that you were. What opens up for you beyond that? Like, what would you love to
Everything.
bring into being? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, everything. I could take my very, very tiny, very fledgling business and make it into something impactful and accessible and that's making a difference in a community that really needs help and support at the moment. Um, so in terms of business, that would be, really fabulous, but then that would also drip out into the rest of my life as well.
See, I love that, and I love the feeling that you describe it with. What would that make possible for you if you were to do that? If you were to take your business and bring it so that it's having a real impact in that community? What does that make possible for you?
Professionally or personally?
Yes.
Okay. This has been something that's been speaking to me for a very long time to bring to fruition. Probably about 8 to 10 years, and it's been popping up and coming round. So to actually take it and run with it and prove to myself that I can do it would be good. But
And
also, as I say, sorry, as I said, that there's so many people who need the
yeah.
support. Um, that would being able to make that difference to other people, so they can have better lives as well. So there becomes a ripple effect. And then obviously that would, in terms of personal, having the financial independence that would give me freedom to be able to add more to my life and to my family's life as well.
See, all of that is so beautiful, Evie. What would that mean to you if you were to create that, to bring that into being?
I think it's everything. I think it would give me a sense of, what's the word? Peace.
Mm.
Peace. Because then I wouldn't be having that conversation with myself about it constantly. And I would know. And I don't want to get to my deathbed and go, I wish I'd tried
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I love all of this, Evie. So I've got some really cool news for you. You know that sense of peace that you
Mhm.
just mentioned? Do you know where that comes from?
Suggested probably be the doing rather than the thinking.
I'll go one better. You know that thing I said at the top of the call about we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having 8 billion human experiences, and who you really are is that one spiritual being. That feeling of peace is the feeling of what it's like to be Evie without all that thinking. That's what it feels like to be Evie without all that thinking.
Rather large thing, isn't
Well, yeah, and
it?
it's something that's so built in that every baby comes preloaded with it.
Very beautiful thing as well,
Yeah.
because we
Well,
get so caught up in everything else, and then remembering who you are gets
yeah,
lost along the way, doesn't it? Yeah, family and
except
job and
it can, but the cool thing is the moment you remember it, oh, there it is. Like my assertion to you, Evie, is that not only is that peace an expression of the truth of your being, your vision of what you're inspired to create is an expression of the truth of your being. And your willingness to keep going at it despite bumping into obstacles and feeling stuck and trying to deal with X, Y, and Z, all of that is an expression of the truth of who you really are. Oh,
That's
you're
a
so
really,
welcome.
it just feels true.
Yeah. Well, here's the cool thing. It feels true because it is true. And it's an interesting distinction, right? Like there are things that can feel real, even though they're not true. But the cool thing is when you fall awake to the truth of your being, you kind of know in your heart that it's true.
Yeah.
So Evie, I'm going to talk to these guys for a moment and then I'm going to come back to you. Can I can I just go and chat with them?
Anything else? Yeah.
All right. So because I'm happy for you to ask me questions now, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I was up to there, what I was paying attention to, and then I'll go back and check in with Evie in a minute. Just a couple of things though. One of the first things that I notice is when I'm listening to someone, I'm listening really as deeply as I possibly can. I'm listening to be impacted by them. I'm listening to get a hit of that person. And I'm following my curiosity. What am I curious about? And in the first thing she said, I heard a bunch of stuff, but the thing that really stuck out to me and kind of tickled me was when she said she had real imposter syndrome. And it's like, given that imposter syndrome is all about pretense and fakery and that sort of thing, pretending to be something you're not, it was kind of hilarious to me that it was the real sort, right? Like, and I was like, no, that feeling of imposter syndrome, that's the imposter. It's a case of mistaken identity. And there's a bigger picture here, which is each of us in our own ways, right? Like each of us got born. I have that on good authority. And when we were born with very, very specific gifts and qualities and strengths and that sort of thing placed in our hearts, right? But we grow up in a home and in a family and in a school system and in a society, and we get all kinds of messages telling us how it's okay to be and how it's not okay to be and all that sort of stuff. And so it creates a tension, you could say, between who we really are and what our unique and authentic expression is versus how we're told we're supposed to be, right? So that's a universal. That's true for everyone. Everyone's got that going on for them to some degree or another, right? And well, I'll tell you guys a quick story. I was doing a talk many years ago. This is 2008. My God, it was many years ago. It was like 17 years ago. So I was teaching men how to be more attractive by being themselves, right? Guys are always, their women friends always tell them, just be yourself. And guys are kind of like, well, I've tried that and it didn't work. But when women say, just be yourself, what they're saying is, be who you really are, not the insecure mess you sometimes show up as. Be who you really are, right? Let your light shine. So I was teaching that, and I was due to do a talk on it. It was the first talk I'd given on it. I sold tickets to it. And as the day of the talk approached, I felt more and more and more insecure. I was getting so bent out of shape and worried and anxious and all this sort of stuff and fit to be tied. I didn't know what to do about it. And then I had an insight. And my insight was this. I thought, I know, I'll take my company checkbook with me, and if it's shit, I'll write everyone a refund. And then at least people won't feel like they've been ripped off. So I took my big company checkbook. I went down there. I was nervous as hell. I got up on stage. I did the session, which was like, I don't know, 90 minutes or something like that. And it felt amazing. And then I never felt so on track and on purpose and all that sort of stuff. And so afterwards, I was thinking, like, because it was so clear to me, oh, this is what you're meant to be doing. This is what you're meant to be doing. So what was all that noise about? What I suddenly realized was this, which is that when you're following your heart, you're following your deepest purpose, by definition, that's going to be moving you away from your conditioning. It's going to be moving you out of your conditioned self. And that's going to bring up noise of one sort or another, because the ego just wants everything to stay the same, right? So when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is great. That means it's a go signal. If you've got something that you're called to do, and then you get all kinds of anxiety about it and that sort of thing, that's a sign that you're disrupting your ego. So you keep going, keep going. And the challenge so many of us face is we get told, oh, we need to solve that before we can move forward. You don't need to solve it. You can just move forward. It's like, but I'll be freaking out. It's like, okay, move forward while freaking out. It's fine. It's fine. I was telling someone today, first time I went on breaking news. So I got asked to go on Sky Breaking News when my first book came out. And so this is going out live to about 5.5 million people. And I was shitting myself. It's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But I said I'd do it. So the car comes to get me and I'm freaking out and I'm totally bent out of shape with it. But I knew it was the right thing to do. So it's like, okay, cool. And again, well, I'll just do it. Tomorrow will roll around either way. So you can just move forward. You don't need to fix how you feel. So let me just see, I think there were some questions. So we got, any question? If there's time, would you please touch on group coaching versus individual? I will touch on that, Karen. Group coaching. Anxiety is a signal to move forward. Specifically when it's a sign that when you're moving, looking at moving forward in the direction of something you're called to, it's a go signal. Yeah. Beautiful. So Evie, anything you're noticing?
Hi, Michael. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm just sat here smiling because I had a similar sort of, well, not a similar experience, but an experience that resonated with, where I was called, I was invited to do a talk to a load of families. And I was very nervous about it. I had my prep. I hadn't done a presentation for like 15 years. So I was really, squirreling about it. And within 5 minutes, I'd thrown the notes away. And I was, sat with them all with a broom. And we were just talking. And at the end of it, we were all, there was maybe 30 people in the room, and everybody was in tears because they said it was really impactful and I'd made a difference to them. And this is how I know that what I do, even though it's not necessarily the most elegant solution, and I'm not necessarily the most qualified person, it does make a difference. But it was that thing of, I got so in my head about it, so stressed about it. And when I got there, it was a really, really wonderful experience for them and for me as well.
So Evie, what if that's true for everything that you're feeling called to bring into being? What if it's the same pattern?
That'd be wonderful.
Well, it's my invitation to you that it is the same pattern. And we innocently get hoodwinked into this idea that we need to fix how we feel or how we think before we can create what we're here to create. But you really don't.
I just need to do.
Yeah, and just see it for what it is. Like for me, it's like, oh, there's my old friend, anxiety, insecurity, over planning, overthinking. It's like, oh, hello, old friend. Okay, here we go. What's the next step? What's the next step for you, Evie? Sorry, I interrupted.
I was just saying, I did like the comment you made about it being your anxiety being a ghost line, because what's really happening is your brain's trying to keep you in a safe place where it knows what's happening. But that's its job to do. Its job isn't to make you happy. Its job is to keep you alive.
Yeah.
And then that, I hadn't seen it in that particular way. It's like I knew it, but I wasn't accessing that knowledge. And I think that's very eye-opening and impactful, is that you just need to, what's going on. Your brain's trying to do its job, but let me go and do my job.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you a distinction you might find quite useful, Evie, which is, and this is going to sound pretty hippie again, but I'm a a very experienced hippie. So, your ego or your conditioning, your thinking, your intellect, it only knows about the past.
Yes.
It doesn't know anything about the future. When it says it knows about the future, it's just taking the past and kind of rolling it out like a carpet. And so your conditioning only knows about the past. Your heart knows about the future. Your heart knows the future that life has in store for you. Your heart knows what you're called to do. One of my favorite quotes is by Steve Jobs, who created Apple, which I still think is the most profitable company on the planet, though they haven't been doing quite so well since he passed away. But he said, above all, have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Now, when he says have the courage to follow your heart and intuition, he doesn't say go and get your head sorted out so you can follow your heart or intuition. He doesn't say fix how you feel so you can follow your heart and your intuition. He says have the courage to follow it, because it's going to be scary sometimes, right? Because your heart and your intuition are going to guide you in directions that your ego goes, oh, that's terrifying, right? So that's why courage, very useful, very useful. And courage is what you used, Evie, to go and speak to that family group. You did courage. Make
I
sense?
don't see courage as that. Yeah, it does. But it didn't feel like courage at the time.
What did it feel like?
I'd said yes, I couldn't get out of it.
Well, here's the thing. I love that you put it like that. When you say yes and you can't get out of it, so you go and do it, even though you're scared, that's courage. That is literally courage. Another definition of courage, no, I can't remember it. I've got a version of, it's something like, you need to do the right thing in life. Courage is doing the right thing. Oh yeah, that's what it is. Here's the definition. It's even less lovely than I remembered. Here's how it goes. Fear is being so scared that you wet your pants. Courage is being true to yourself and doing the right thing with wet pants. And it, to me, that's so much more liberating than thinking I have to fix all my feelings before I can do what I'm here to do. It's
It
not,
is liberating. It is. I'm
it's not
sitting here
nice.
thinking, yeah, I don't have to do any more fixing,
Yeah.
because I've done a lot of fixing. There's
Yeah.
a lot to fix. I've done a lot of fixing. And in terms of my life, I'm at a point now where I can actually go, let's do this. There's my kids don't need me as much as they did, and all of these things. So it feels like there's a season coming for me that's just about what I can do and what I can give and what I can achieve. And that thing of, I don't have to fix anymore. I can just go and do this. I've got goosebumps. I sat here with goosebumps. It's really sort of like resonating and vibrating inside of me. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Evie. Everyone, can you give Evie a big virtual round of applause? You're a great demo subject. Thank you, Evie. That was fantastic. Thanks for your attention. I look forward to seeing you soon.